Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac. Tonight, our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Los Angeles Clippers for the first time this season. That's right, a rare game in which there was no series sweep on the line. And this felt like that's been the case more often than not lately. But tonight it was different as they were taking on the Clippers for the first time this year. And they entered the contest on an 11-game road winning streak, the most in franchise history. And we're looking for their 27th road victory of this season. It would have tied the record for the most road wins in franchise history. And right off the bat, we got a bit of good news to open as Evan Mobley would rejoin the starting lineup. And that, my friends, would give the Cavs the full deck of cards to work with. Ditto for Los Angeles. But the one key difference, Brian Shaw would replace Ty Lue for tonight's game as Lue was dealing with back pain. I gotta admit, the game would get off to a great start as Cleveland would outscore Los Angeles 45-37 in the first quarter behind strong starts from Donovan Mitchell and DeAndre Hunter, each of which had 10 points. Hell, everyone, and I mean everybody, was getting involved to start as every player that saw the floor scored in the opening frame. 5 different Cavaliers drilled a triple with Hunter and Strus knocking down 2 apiece. The team shot a collective 53.8% from three-point distance and 61.5% from the field overall, which was some very impressive stuff, no doubt. But credit where it's due, LA wasn't playing around either, as they managed to shoot a collective 56.5% from the field, including a scorching 46.2% from three-point range as well. So there were definitely a good number of isolation sets from the Clippers, but they made sure to move that ball and take advantage of the three-point shots when they were available. Bogdanovich was key in that regard as he drilled 2 early trays and just absolutely threw flame all night as he would go a perfect 8 of 8 from the field, including 4 of 4 from distance. And Bogdanovich has been basically a perfect addition to this Clippers lineup as he is shooting 40% from beyond the arc since being acquired. Hell, as of right now, the man is shooting a career best 48.5% from the field with LA. He's been very productive compared to the way his season started. These are his numbers with Atlanta versus his numbers with LA. Vastly more efficient, as you can tell. Honestly, it just felt like neither team could miss in that first half. And I'm not simply making shit up. Both teams shot over 50% from the floor in the first half and 50% or better from range. It was wild. And it wasn't like there wasn't any defense being played whatsoever. I did watch Dean Wade, DeAndre Hunter, and Ivica Zubac, along with many other Cavaliers, close out or try to stay attached to the hip. Yet they still managed to allow the Clippers to drill trays. I saw that happen with Kawhi Leonard more than a few times tonight. All of that said, it was definitely an entertaining first half of basketball, objectively speaking. Allowing your opponent to shoot above 50% from the field is usually not a solid defensive strategy and will not often result in wins. And what's crazy is that these are actually 2 of the NBA's top 10 defenses that we are talking about here. The Clippers entered as the second rated defense, while the Cavs were 7th. But with so much offensive talent between the two teams, the offenses just ran rampant for a large portion of the game, especially in that first half. From an individual standpoint, something I was really interested in entering tonight would be the defensive efforts of DeAndre Hunter versus numerous Clippers wings, mainly Kawhi Leonard. But the problem was he picked up 2 early fouls, one against Leonard and the other on James Harden, which is not what you want to see. And that limited him to around 11 total minutes in the first 2 quarters. Now, offensively speaking, he did put together a very solid performance, at least in the first half, which was a welcome sight considering how he largely struggled offensively against the Orlando Magic, going just 2 of 11 from the field. He knocked down 6 of 6, including 3 of 3 from range in the opening 2 frames. Max Strus was just as awesome, if we're being honest, in that first half, as he would contribute 12 points on 3 of 7 from the field, including 3 of 6 from distance himself. He would close the half by drawing a 3-shot foul with about 1.7 left on the clock. Mobley and Garland were also contributing offensively as 5 different Cavaliers would end the first half with 10 or more points. LA themselves would have a trio in that of Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, and James Harden. It was a fun game up to that point. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. But clearly, things were unsustainable. And to that point, things came off the rails starting in the third and fourth quarters. And you may have noticed that I have yet to mention a very important aspect of tonight's loss, that being the rebounding. Now, obviously, there won't be many opportunities for rebounds when both teams make well over 50% of their shots in the first half of a game. And that was evident as Cleveland would pull down 17 total rebounds to LA's 19 in the first half. That can be forgiven if one, you're winning the game at that point, and two, you are managing to pull down the misses that actually occur. That much was somewhat true, 17 to 19. I'm not going to harp too much on that, especially when both teams shoot 50+% from the field. Still, there was a particular player that was there for everything, and I mean everything when the shots were not falling, first half included, and his name is Ivica Zubac, a man that has a compelling case for most improved player and maybe even had one for an all-star berth. He ain't make it, but man, he's just been phenomenal. He's been putting up career numbers across the board for Tyronn Lue's Clippers, who are fighting for playoff seeding as we speak. These are his numbers as of now. He's balling out and has been a big part of that Clippers rotation this season. Just a phenomenal aspect that he brings to the table. A phenomenal performances night in and night out from Ivica Zubac, who is now averaging 16.4 points, 12.6 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 1.2 blocks. He's shooting 62.5% from the field. He's playing 32.6 minutes per game and has appeared in 67 games. So he's been really, really healthy. And that, my friends, is what has made this Clippers team so hard to deal with at times, especially tonight. The man has just been balling out, and a big part of that came on the glass. After finishing with 9 points in a game high 8 rebounds in the first two quarters, Big Zoo would only turn up the intensity in the final two quarters as he would snag so many rebounds, 12 to be exact, 4 of them of the offensive variety. The man just flat out outworked the Cavs bigs tonight. And on many possessions, both Allen and Mobley at the same time drawing contact and foul calls in the process. And he would score 19 of his 28 points in the second half. And it's not like he's a floor spacer either. He just rim runs, goes to work in the low post, and is a lob threat out there for Harden and company. He's also a pretty solid playmaker at his size, being one of just 19 centers averaging at least 2.5 assists this season. Just as steady as they come, and has been a large part of their success. So all credit where it's due to Big Zoo. But it wasn't just Zubac who torched Cleveland in the second half, as Kawhi Leonard just absolutely morphed into vintage Claw. Leonard scored 22 points himself in the second half. And for additional context, consider that Cleveland's leading scorer from this one overall was Max Strus, who would finish the night with 24 points. Leonard put up 22 points in 2 quarters. Let that sink in. Max got 24. Leonard got 22 points in 2 quarters. He was efficient with the mid-range looks as well as at the rim. And the one that really stuck out to me was a beautiful shot over Darius Garland. And these guys are not the Boston Celtics. Let's not mix things up here, but they are really, really good at hunting switches. And here's the thing. The Cavs did not start the second half terribly inefficient collectively, as they would shoot a combined 52.2% of the field, with most of that coming from inside the arc. They went just 2 of 6 from 3-point distance in that third quarter, but a bulk of their makes came from inside that 3-point line. And the game was practically back and forth at that point with numerous lead changes. The Cavs held a 98-93 lead after a pair of Max Strus triples and a layup with about 4 to 5 minutes left in the third. And he was 5 of 5 in that third and paced the Cavs in scoring tonight. But LA was just right there with the counterpunch for every Cavs make in that third quarter. Zubac and Leonard were the key cogs in pushing LA along. They combined for 28 of the Clippers' third quarter points and helped them shoot 59.1% in that third quarter. Just brilliant shot making from them. And like the Cavs, it was coming inside that 3-point line. They too were just 2 of 6 from range. They were also able to get to the line at will, going 10 of 11 from the charity stripe in the process. And all of that said, it was 100-95 with about 3 minutes and 3 seconds left on the clock. But that is when the tide turned and things truly felt like the momentum shifted. Zubac was a menace in the paint defensively and continued to make his way to the rim. The Cavs often had no answer. And as a result, LA would go on an 11-2 run to close the third quarter, going up 106-102. The rebounds, as I mentioned before, were a huge portion, perhaps maybe the most telling portion of why the Cavaliers lost this game. They got out rebounded 10-6 in that third quarter as LA got timely offensive boards, like the one by James Harden that resulted in a Bogdanovich triple to tie the game at 102 overall. And speaking of Harden, he absolutely cooked Evan Mobley in isolation on one of the final possessions of the third. And we're talking about presumably the defensive player of the year, a guy that many people feel like now after Wemby went down and he has outplayed Jaren Jackson Jr., we feel like Evan Mobley, it's safe to say, will likely win that defensive player of the year award. And for what it's worth, you're not going to beat everybody. You will get beaten at some point, even as a defensive player of the year candidate. And that is absolutely what happened at numerous times tonight, whether it be Zubac or Kawhi Leonard or James Harden in that isolation set to close that third quarter. Mobley, it was a bad one. It was just so telling on how tonight's performance was going. The Cavs' final lead of the game at 102-99 with about 2 minutes left in the third would be, again, that was their last, as the fourth and final frame would be an absolute nightmare. The Cavs would score just 17 total points. Donovan Mitchell would go 1-6. Darius Garland would go 1-5. DeAndre Hunter, who put up 15 points on a perfect 6-6 from the field in the first half, would be completely non-existent on the offensive end in the second half, as he would add just 2 more points and go 1-4 in half number 2. Mobley was a non-factor. Ditto for Jarrett Allen. The two combined for 3 total points on 1 field goal in the fourth quarter. Mobley in particular absolutely struggled in that final frame. He drew contact but just could not knock down his freebies, going 1-4 from the line. He would finish with 17 total points and was, I shit you not, a minus 27, worst on the floor in the night in that regard. The worst part, he finished with 3 rebounds. That cannot happen. He played about 15 minutes in the second half and pulled down one rebound during that stretch. Allen finished with 8 total rebounds. Zubac had 20. This motherfucker had 20 rebounds. It was his third 2020 game of the season. What the hell? Come on, guys. You have to do better. And look, Zubac is having a terrific season. Take nothing away from that and nothing away from him, right? He has been phenomenal this year, but that cannot happen. And after a mini run that cut the lead to 108-115 with about 7:33 left in the third, the offense would just go completely cold. It was frozen. The Cavs shot a collective 28.6% from the field, including 1 of 13 from range in quarter number 4. That cannot happen. The Clippers, meanwhile, would shoot 57.1% with Big Zoo again leading the charge, scoring 6 in the frame and pulling down 8 boards, 3 on the offensive glass. Bogdanovich couldn't miss, going 4-4. Leonard kept up his great play. Cleveland would manage to get it to as close as 115-121 after DeAndre Hunter drew an and one. It did not knock down the free throw, but wouldn't get any closer with LA slamming the door via a Zubac putback dunk. And so the Cavaliers would lose game number 12 on the season. They have another opportunity to right the ship versus the Kings tonight at 9:30. But man, that was just another loss that the Cavaliers probably could have prevented had they just gone to work on the glass. Yes, the offense went cold in that fourth quarter. Yes, their three-point shooting was absolutely abysmal in the second half in general. But the Cavaliers, in a game where they score 115 plus, you should have been able to walk away with the W. The Clippers, you got to give them some credit, right? Zubac Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Norman Powell, these guys have been balling out for large portions of the season. And I know Leonard has missed a large chunk of the year, but Norman Powell is flirting around with all-star status. He is certainly going to be looked at as a most improved player candidate, if not outright winner. And James Harden is coming off an all-star berth himself. These are guys who play really good basketball, who are coached by an excellent coach, a championship winning coach in Tyronn Lue. And I don't know. You have to take them seriously. They are now the 8th seeded team in the Western Conference. They will be battling for seeding matchup in a jam-packed Western Conference that people still consider to be the superior conference. But at the end of the day, I tend to believe that this Cavaliers team is just there are certain things that are occurring right now that I'm hoping will be able to be smoothed over, right? Donovan Mitchell in particular has struggled as of late. These are Donovan Mitchell's post All-Star break numbers updated after tonight's game. 24.7 points, 4.4 rebounds, 5.1 assists. He is shooting 40.8% from the field, 31.2% from three-point range, 79.8% from the charity stripe, and he is doing this in about 31 and a half minutes per game. Now, at the end of the day, yes, he was putting up the points. Yes, he is dealing out more assists, but the inefficiency is what has been most bothersome post All-Star break. And if I'm not mistaken, this is an 11-game sample size for Donovan, who has missed a couple of games since then. But at the end of the day, he has to get better, right? He has to be better. Ditto for Darius Garland. Both of these guys, both of these star guards for Cleveland have to be better. If the Cavaliers have any thoughts on challenging Boston for Eastern Conference supremacy, right? This cannot continue. And I don't think it will, but it is something to keep an eye on as of now, as both of these two have gone through somewhat of a mini slump during this post All-Star break stretch. So I hope that does not continue, but we are seeing it continue. And it's something that's becoming more and more concerning as this season winds down, right? You want guys not necessarily to have peaked, or there's whole conversation with the Cavaliers peaked too early. And I do not believe that to be the case. I think Darius and Donovan are going to be fine, but you want to see those shooting percentages trending back upward as the season winds down. And hopefully against Sacramento tonight, they can kind of turn the page. I don't know, with this being a back-to-back, if everybody will play tonight. I am going to go out on a limb here and assume that somebody misses tonight, whether that be Donovan or Darius or Jarrett. Somebody, in my opinion, will likely miss tonight. Don't quote me on that. I have no idea. I have no sources. I'm just saying, if I was a betting man, I would assume that somebody will probably miss tonight with rest. But time will tell in that regard. Again, I give major credit, major props where it's due to LA. They absolutely came into this one, made it a fun contest. And again, as I said, don't let anybody lie to you. This was a fun game for most of it, right? For the first 3 quarters, absolutely fun basketball throughout. You could even make a case that until about midway through the fourth, the game was a fun watch, objectively speaking. The Cavaliers went absolutely ice cold from the field, but it was a fun game. If you are a fan of basketball, if you're a fan of offense, this was the game for you. As Cleveland and LA would trade blow for blow for many of these games, and I mean for many of these quarters, and it was fun. It was a fun romp, and I'm hopeful that Cleveland can put it behind them against Sacramento tonight. But I'm just trying to take it a game at a time, a game by game. This is only their 12th loss of the season. They've now lost 2 in a row, and I think I joked about this on my last stream, but it almost feels like you forget what losing feels like after experiencing so much success this season. And so if the Cavaliers are just slumping right now, hopefully that does not continue. I believe that they'll put some of these things to bed sooner rather than later. I'm just hoping that everybody stays healthy. But time will tell. As I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, more. If you'd like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send me a screenshot. I sent a review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you said invite. If you want to support the podcast in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon. The link will be in the description. You guys never know how much that helps your boy out. You can become a member for as low as $1 a month. Get exclusive access to the Discord chat, which will be more active. I promise you. That said, go Cavs. Have a good one.